to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And man, just when you thought the game was going to go well last night with Union getting an early goal courtesy by Mikael Uhre in the second minute, that lead was nice for 24 minutes, and Lionel Messi does Messi things, and that was too much for the Union to handle as they fall to Inter Miami by a score of 3-1. We are live on YouTube. As always, your friendly reminder, you can join us, interact with us in the comment section, and would love to get more and more people involved with these live shows. I know that I've said in the past to people that, the goal is to go live the day after games around 9 o'clock is what we've been aiming for. 9:30 is about what we kicked off for here Sunday night. So, as always, I appreciate you guys when you guys interact with me on YouTube, because you guys are what make doing this podcast the best part, getting comments, DMs after the fact, after you guys listen to the show. So, as always, I thank you guys for the support. But we have a lot to talk about in this episode, a lot of thoughts on last night's game against Inter Miami. I want to go ahead and talk about the news tonight, go ahead and do something we haven't done all season, because if you guys missed it, we had a match preview show for the very first time this season. I know that's what you guys have been used to hearing the last year and a half, where we would bring on MLS commentators, journalists, and then we started out talking about having other podcasters on the show and just previewing upcoming games for the Union. And so we finally did a match preview this year. We had Chris Theron on from the Better Terrans podcast, and we talked all things Inter Miami and a little bit of Philadelphia Union. And then right after my show, I hopped on his podcast, and we focused more so on the Union. But fantastic time having Chris on the show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that episode, and we'll see if we get another match preview episode this year. I know it's not been what you guys are used to. It's not, been what I've been used to the last, like I said, year and a half. But, that was cool. So we'll go ahead and bring back an old segment that we used to talk about, was my 3 keys to the game. So we'll go ahead and review those keys, go over the 3 stars, and then we'll go ahead and end the episode with Blunder of the Week, because we do, unfortunately, have a great nomination for Blunder of the Week, and I'm sure there is more. But as always, if you guys have nominations for Blunder of the Week, anything that's happened in the soccer world, be free to DM me, be free to, message on YouTube. I see all your guys' comments. So if you guys have a nomination that you think is worthy for Blunder of the Week, as always, nominate it, and we'll see what else other people say. Yeah, you should talk about this. But without further ado, let's get straight into the news. All right, so we have 3 news topics that we want to talk about tonight. None of them are involving the Philadelphia Union, because as we all know, the season window to add free agents and whatnot has officially closed. It closed on September 13th. Union did not add anybody else, and so now the MLS roster freeze is in full effect, and teams can no longer add players. We'll start off with Houston Dynamo. They have added MLS veteran Junior Moreno, who has played with DC United, FC Cincinnati in the past. Moreno has 102 appearances with DC United. He has 1 goal, 7 assists. He has 72 appearances with FC Cincinnati, where he had 6 goals and 3 assists. He's been capped 40 times by Venezuela. He's played with Ben Olsen, or for Ben Olsen, I should say, when Ben Olsen was in charge at DC United for 3 seasons, from 2018 to 2020. Junior Moreno was under Ben Olsen. Junior played from 2018 to 2021 with DC United. He's 31 years old. He's a defensive midfielder. And, I am a little bit surprised that it took him this long to sign with a team. I thought during his time with FC Cincinnati, he was a fantastic player. I think he was maybe a little bit undervalued around MLS. And, I guess it's not that hard when you play with Abina Wobodo, who I think is the best center defensive midfielder in MLS. And you play next to that guy, he's going to make anybody look good. But Junior Moreno is back in MLS, this time with Houston Dynamo, reuniting with Ben Olsen. Moving on to another player reuniting with his former club. That is Carlos Vela. He is back with LAFC after many rumors this season. When will he stay? Will he go to another team? Is he going to resign with LAFC? He has officially returned to LAFC. He's played 6 seasons in LA. He's won an MLS Cup. We don't have to remind Union fans about that. He has 2 Supporter Shields, 1 MVP, 93 goals, 54 assists during his tenure with LAFC. This guy is Mr. LAFC, and he is back as LAFC look to push on to the playoffs, try to go on a deep playoff run. We've talked about in the past the players that LAFC have added with Olivier Giroud. They've been linked with Antoine Griezmann. It didn't happen this transfer window. We'll see if LAFC revisit that in the winter transfer window. But as things stand, LAFC, they're getting a player that's been successful in the past with MLS. He's not the same player that he was when he first joined the league, but nonetheless, you get that experienced player, and he's a player that everybody in that locker room respects massively. Everybody in that front office respects massively, and so Carlos Vela back with LAFC. And then the final news topic we want to talk about tonight is Carlos Bocanegra is out as VP and Technical Director in Atlanta. He was hired in 2015 as the Technical Director. During his time with the club, they've won 2018 MLS Cup, the 2019 Champions Cup, and 2019 US Open Cup. Atlanta, they haven't finished in the top 4 in the Eastern Conference since 2019. They missed the playoffs twice since 2019, in 2020 and 2022. They went through a whole bunch of different close coaches. We've seen under Bocanegra, Joseph Martinez, Miguel Almiron, Thiago Almada, all very, very good players, and I would throw Giakoumakis in that list as well. But there's been a lot of misses too, and for a team that hit the ground running pretty much in the first season, then the very next year they won the MLS Cup, then they win the US Open Cup and the Champions Cup in 2019. I mean, there's a fan base that it was extremely spoiled. There's a fan base that doesn't know what to do, where they go ahead and look at, just the year that they've had since they first came into the league to what it is now. It's been disappointing for Atlanta United fans, and they let their voices be heard on social media. Valerie says, don't remind us in regards to Carlos Vela with him winning the MLS Cup. We're not going to bring that up. Another comment here on YouTube says, hello, Union fans. Hello. Thank you so much for checking out the live stream. And as always, share this on your social medias because, like I said in the intro, you guys are what make the show the best. When you guys interact, I love reading your comments, whether it be live on YouTube or getting DMs or people emailing, whatever the case may be. I love interacting with you guys. But that is pretty much everything that we had in store for tonight in regards to the news. If I missed anything, you guys can send me hate mail. But those are the 3 big topics that I saw. So let's go ahead and talk about that Inter Miami versus Philadelphia Union match. So we know Lionel Messi scored twice in the game. He assisted 1. He has 17 goals on the season. Luis Suarez, he scored his 17th goal of the season. And Jack McGlynn, if you guys missed it, Mike Barrera hosted a pregame show on AAT Sports Across the Pitch. And so we invited myself and then Jillian and Kyle Almany from the One Team We Agree On to go ahead and just give a pregame show. And I said one player that needs to have a big game for the Union this match was Jack McGlynn. I thought Jack McGlynn, this was a great opportunity for him. We knew that Inter Miami was going to have long spells of possession. We knew that Inter Miami coming into this game were going to be selective in their shots. And we knew that Jack McGlynn would have to play defense in this game. And I thought when the Union win the ball back, get Jack McGlynn on the ball often. And when the Union would get him on the ball, he wasn't effective. Only 42 touches on the night, which isn't his typical standard. He had no chances created on the night. He had 5 passes into the final third, which is good. He's a player that's always looking to play forward. He completed 92% of his passes. But Jack McGlynn, this was a game for him to really take the game by the scruff of the neck, really be that playmaker that the Union are looking for. And unfortunately, Jack McGlynn disappointed and didn't have a great game, came out in the 62nd minute. And Jim Curtin told us after the game that Danley John Jock played 15 minutes in this game and said he'll be in line to start on Wednesday against New York City, which is great. And I thought in his 15 minutes, I thought Danley played well. I thought he played well. And I was particularly impressed watching him and Sam and Dinaron actually won the ball off of Messi in the Union's own half of the field, and then Sam and Danley had a good 1-2 combination, and Danley's a player that you can tell once Union get a good defensive midfielder in here where he can play as an 8, you know this guy's going to excel. He had a great game against New York Red Bulls. Unfortunately, suffered an ankle injury in international duty with Haiti against Puerto Rico, and those ankle injuries, I mean, you never know. They could be very, very serious, and you know that you can miss a lot of time. You know, you don't know how people are going to react, and the good thing was seeing Danley be able to be on the bench for this game, play 15 minutes. Jim Curtin said 15-20 minutes was probably going to be all that Danley could play tonight, and that's exactly what he played. And so he said after the game, Danley's going to be able to play and start against New York City, which will be huge for this game, for this club. And we'll go ahead and talk about all of that here towards the end of the show. You know, do the Unions have playoff hopes? I do believe they still have a chance to make the playoffs, but again, we'll talk about all that here in a little bit. But, you know, overall, this was a disappointing game by the Union, where they they get off to a hot start, and that's exactly what Kyle Almany said when we were with Mike Barrera, that the Union need to get off to a hot start, and that was the best way to start is to get a goal within the first 5 minutes of the game. It comes in the second minute with Mikael Uhre, and then the Union have multiple chances to go up by 2 goals, potentially go up by 3 if they could have capitalized on one of them. I mean, Miami were hurting themselves, and Tomás Avilés, a big reason why Mikael Uhre scored that goal was a horrible clearance by him with a header, just went straight up. Mikael Uhre was the first person to react to that. Miami, they had a throw-in. That's how this play started. Julian Gressel went into Luis Suarez. Suarez turns the ball over with his pass, and then that's when Avilés made a mess of it with that misheader clearance, and with Miami having too many men for it, they couldn't get back in time, and Mikael Uhre capitalizes on that chance. Again, I want to spend more time talking about the chances that the Union had in this game in the first half, primarily, but also in the second half. Reading a comment right here, Valerie says, your score prediction was right. Yeah, I said on the Better Terrans that it would be 3-1. I also said on Mike's show that the score would be 3-1, and I think there's a good transition into the next topic is when we saw that Andre Blake wasn't going to be playing, you knew it was going to be a tough game for the Union. You know how valuable Andre Blake is to this club, and it's just continuing to be the case this season. When we look at when Andre Blake's played, when he hasn't played, and you know that's no shots at Andrew Rick or Oliver Zemla, but they're not Andre Blake, and I have a whole bunch of notes written here. I still haven't got around to doing my thread of comparing the goalkeepers and everything, but maybe we'll get to that. Maybe we will. But we'll talk about all the stats that I would make the thread on, because I want to try to make it pretty with pie charts and all that stuff, because, you know, that's what Jose says. You know, you need that for engagement. So we'll see if we get the charts made up and post on social media before the game against New York City. No promises, but we will talk about other stats that I've written down. So that was Andre Blake's 20th missed game this season for the Union, and if you're counting, that's 51% of the games in all competitions for the Union. 51%, that's not good. Andrew Rick makes his 5th start of the season, his first since July 13th against Toronto in the 2-1 loss. And I think the Union knew that they were going to miss Andre Blake at times this season because of international duty. They couldn't predict the future and know that Andre Blake was going to miss 51% of the games this year due to injury. Who would have saw this coming? There's been multiple people in the Union's organization that told me that they pushed to get John McCarthy into the club hard in the offseason. He winds up signing with LA Galaxy. Now McCarthy's not starting with LA Galaxy, and people have said, you know, could McCarthy be on the move this offseason? I think it's a potential chance for him to move from LA Galaxy, where he's not the starting goalkeeper. I look at a team like San Diego going to be new into MLS. Could LA Galaxy leave John McCarthy unprotected in the expansion draft, and could San Diego potentially draft him? Could they work out a trade? Potentially, But I know the Union pushed really, really hard to get John McCarthy back into the club, and he ultimately decided, look, I have a chance to start with LA Galaxy. I'm going to get paid decent money. And yes, the money aspect was real, but starting, he lost that starting role pretty quickly. And so we'll see what happens. I do know that the Union really wanted John McCarthy back at the club, and I think a lot of fans would have felt a lot more comfortable if John McCarthy was at the club as opposed to Oliver Zemler or Andrew Rick. And this is no shots fired at Andrew Rick. He's 18 years old, and nobody could have expected him to play 5 games this season. That's just totally unfair to Andrew. He's 18 years old, just recently started playing consistently with Union 2 the last couple seasons, last year and this season. And who would have thought that, the Union would have to rely on Andrew Rick 5 times this year just because Oliver Zemler has been that big of a disappointment. And it's a huge step up. Jim Curtin says it all the time, from going from the USL to the MLS. And we've seen Oliver Zemler now make back-to-back starts with Union 2. Tonight, Union 2 took on Inter Miami, and the Union wound up losing that game 3-2. Oliver Zemler gives up three goals tonight. And I think MLS Next Pro is a much weaker competition than USL, and so that's not going to be well for Oliver's confidence. I would imagine if Andre Blake can't go on Wednesday against New York City, I'm sure we'll see Andrew Rick once again. But Oliver Zemler, it's not been great this season, and because of that, Andrew Rick gets signed to a homegrown contract, which he was eventually going to get signed to. But I think, the injury to Andre Blake and Oliver Zemler playing pretty poorly sped up that process even faster. So I can't really be too negative on Andrew Rick. Yes, he should have done a better job on that second goal by Messi. He gets a palm to it and still winds up in the back of the net. But going back to these stats, when Andre Blake has been healthy in the games that he has played, the Union are 8-5-6 in all competitions. During one of those losses, though, which, you got to put an asterisk towards this, Andre Blake played 6 minutes against Seattle. That game, as we all knew, was suspended because of rain. And then when the game resumed, Oliver Zemler was in net. The Union subbed out Andre Blake because he was injured at the time. And so I don't think it's fair to say, yes, Andre Blake lost the Union that game, because when he was in the net, it was 0-0. He only played 6 games, but they credited Andre Blake with the loss. Oliver Zemler also gets the loss for that game. Union wound up losing 3-2. He played 74 minutes versus Minnesota before being subbed out because of a concussion. The Union at the time were winning 1-0. Oliver Zemler comes in. Union wound up winning that game 2-0. The Union saw Andre Blake play 45 minutes against Atlanta before being subbed out. It was tied 0-0 at that point. When Oliver Zemler comes in, the Union concede 2 goals. They wind up scoring 2 goals to tie the game at 2 apiece. Had a third goal disallowed, which probably would have won the Union the game towards the end of that match, but it ends 2-2. And so in 9 games this season for the Union, Andre Blake has 6 goals conceded, 21 saves, 77.8 shots saved. It's fantastic, and this is what Andre Blake's been throughout his whole career with the Union, is a shot stopper. And the Union are going to give up chances. That's just how the Union are. They're a team that likes to play aggressive, which is fine, because when you have a goalkeeper like Andre Blake in the back, it's okay to play aggressive, to step to the ball, to step out of position. Because you have an Andre Blake back there going to bail you out. But you can't play that way with Andrew Rick. You can't play that way with Oliver Zemler, because neither one of those goalkeepers are confident in stopping shots. I would say Andrew Rick's probably a little bit better than Oliver Zemler, but at the same time, neither one of those guys are Andre Blake. More stats for Andre Blake. Hopefully you guys aren't tired of those. 9 goals conceded in 7 Leagues Cup matches, 22 saves, 71 shots saved that were on target. 8 goals conceded in 3 CONCACAF Champions League games. 6 of those were against Pachuca. So again, context matters in this case, where he gave up 8 goals, yes, but 6 of those came against Pachuca in that horrible game down in Mexico. And he had 11 saves, 57.9% of his shots on target were saved. Andrew Rick now 0-4-1, 11 goals conceded in 5 games, 14 saves, has a save percentage of 54.2%, which isn't great when you're saving just barely 50% of your shots faced. And then Oliver Zemler, by far been the worst goalkeeper of the bunch. He's 4-6-8 in all competitions this season. You go ahead and look. Like I said, he came in for Andre Blake for Seattle. Union lose that game 3-2. Came in for Blake against Atlanta. Gave up 2 goals. Played 16 minutes versus Minnesota. Gets the win. So asterisk towards one of those 4 wins. You go ahead and look. 29 goals conceded in MLS by Oliver Zelma. 4 clean sheets, 49 saves, 65.4 save percentage. It's just not been good enough for Oliver Zemla. And I've said this before on other shows. I've said it on this show, and I'll continue to say it. The game where I said, yeah, I'm pretty much done with Oliver Zemla was that game in Chicago. The Union were up 3-1. They wind up losing that game 4-3. That is a game that you cannot lose. You go up by 2 goals on the road. You score 3 goals on the road. This Union team, and we saw it again last night against Inter Miami, they can score on the road, but when they had chances to go up by multiple goals, one of the rare times this season, they couldn't go up by multiple goals on the road. But Oliver Zemla against Chicago Fire was horrible. There's no reason why the Union should have blown that game 3-1, wind up losing 4-3. We see Oliver Zemla mispunch the ball, goes out for a corner kick. Very next corner, Chicago Fire score. He's not good at all at commanding his boxes. Teams know that. They send in a lot of crosses. This guy's not good at collecting the ball. He's very, very shaky. Shot stopping, he's been okay at 65.4% of his shots faced have been saved, like I said. 62.5% of shots faced have been saved in Leagues Cup in his 1 appearance. But he also gave up 3 goals. He's a goalkeeper that gives up a lot of chances. Like we said, this Union team's going to give up a lot of chances, and that's why you need a good shot stopper. Andrew Rick, young goalkeeper, can't really judge him. Yes, again, should have saved that second goal by Messi. Andre Blake 100% would have saved that. Oliver Zemla, a more experienced goalkeeper, yes, playing at a lower level in the USL compared to MLS. Tonight, we see him give up 3 goals against Inter Miami 2 in Union 2's 3-2 loss. He's just not been great for the Union. And again, the Union find themselves in such a difficult situation where Andrew Rick got rushed because of how poor Oliver Zemla has been. And if John McCarthy would have signed with the Union, and I know we can't be having woulda, coulda, shoulda, but how different would this season have been if John McCarthy was in net instead of Zemla or Andrew Rick? I think, John McCarthy's a really, really good goalkeeper. He's a player that definitely would have got more wins, and I heard some fans say on social media, like, man, I wish we still had Joe Bendick. I'm sure some of those people were just joking, were kidding around, but yeah, maybe Joe Bendick would be a better option than Oliver Zemla at this time. We've seen Joe Bendick have blunders in the past for the Union, but Oliver Zemla doesn't have the MLS experience that Joe Bendick has. But the fact of the matter is, the Union found themselves in a horrible position this season in terms of goalkeeper, which has led to people asking, should goalkeeper be a priority next season for the Union? I do believe the Union wind up loaning out Andrew Rick to play at the USL because USL is higher competition than MLS Next Pro. Oliver Zemla, trying to move on from him is going to be very, very difficult. I should have had this down in my notes. I'll go ahead and look it up right now, how much Oliver is getting paid. But the issue is with Oliver, he's getting paid $106,000. Which isn't a ton of money, but you look at the contract. And I'll be curious to see, how much of a bump he gets next season. But he signed for, I believe, let's look it up right here. Oliver Zemla is signed through, again, should have been more prepared in going through this. Oliver Zemla, why can I not find Oliver Zemla? There he is. Oliver Zemla signed through 2025, has an option for 2026. So, yeah, he has a guaranteed contract for next season. There's no way that the Union wind up cutting this guy. Do you convince a team in USL to take on his $106,000 contract? Maybe, but I would imagine the Union would have to eat some of that salary. We have Valerie chiming in here talking about, not to mention that Andre is a better captain and ally than Jacob Glesnes. Kyle says, great breakdown, Todd. I appreciate that, Kyle. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting, too. And I've seen fans talk about the leadership that Alejandro Bedoya brings to this club compared to Andre Blake or Jacob Glesnes. And I don't know if I want to read too much into that, because then you're basically saying, well, you can never replace Alejandro Bedoya because of his leadership ability. And so, if that's the case, then yeah, you got to bring back Alejandro Bedoya next season, which I do think the club should give him a contract extension at a lower rate than he's making this year. For fans that aren't sickos, aren't following how much money players are making, Alejandro Bedoya is making essentially $450,000 this year. If he's willing to take less money, I'd bring him back, honestly. He still offers you something offensively, but he's not going to get a salary bump if he goes to like a San Diego or whatever. If San Diego says, hey, look, we want you to come and lead this young squad, I can't see him getting a huge salary bump if that was to happen. Alejandro Bedoya said with Herculez Gomez that he does want to come back. He does want to come back for another season. He feels like he still has it, and the stats don't lie. He still has it offensively. He's continuing to put up numbers offensively for the Union. Defensively, his numbers are down, but yeah, he's still a player that's creating chances, and that's a valuable weapon to have coming off the bench, in my opinion, and the occasional spot start. Jose says, Rick to USL, my vote. Yeah, I agree, Jose. I know you've talked about this on Across the Pitch with Mike. You've mentioned, I believe, on Twitter too, that you wouldn't be surprised if Andrew Rick gets loaned out next season to USL. We have Jillian saying, I'd like to see Alejandro Bedoya brought back. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if he takes less money, why not? And the numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. He's one of the highest chance creators still on this Union team, and he's been that for the last couple of years. So those are my thoughts on Andre Blake, the goalkeeping situation. I don't know. I mean, if the Union could potentially go out and get a better goalkeeper than Oliver Zemla, they can convince a team to take some of Zemla's contract, you send him on loan next year, then I wouldn't be against that. But it's a hard contract to try to move off of and try to expect some team to pick up the full $106,000 contract that he's on this season. I'd imagine that it's not going to be much of a bump next year, but that contract's fully guaranteed next year, and I can't see the Union fully outright cutting him. There's no way. So the Union are stuck with the goalkeeping situation that they're stuck with this season, and we'll see what happens next year. You hope that Andre Blake can play Wednesday against New York City because, like I said, the numbers don't lie. Andre Blake has only played in 49% of the Union's game this year, and for total, the Union have 8 wins under Andre Blake. They have 5 losses, 6 draws. Again, have to take some of those losses with an asterisk because of Andre Blake missing games because of injury. But let's go ahead and talk about the Union's missed chances. And I think this team actually played pretty well defensively. Yes, you give up 3 goals. The goal late on to Luis Suarez, that was a goal that really didn't matter, but it makes the scoreline look worse than how the game actually played out. Andrew Rick should have saved that second goal by Messi. The first goal was a thing of beauty. Miami only had 9 shots in the game, 4 of those shots on target. And again, I talked about it in my match preview that Inter Miami is going to be a team that possesses the ball for long periods of the game. They winded up ending the game with 62% possession, 9 shots, 4 of those on target. They're a team that's very, very selective in where they're going to shoot. And so I thought the Union actually did a good job just taking away shots inside the box where Miami's been very, very killer this whole season. And unfortunately, when they had chances to capitalize, you look at the chances in the first half, and we can talk about those chances more specifically after we hear Jim Curtin's thoughts on the missed opportunities, because how many times have you guys heard me on the show talk about how the Union have been one of the highest scoring teams on the road this season? They've scored 27 goals now, which is still in the top 5 in MLS in terms of goals on the road. It's a team that knows how to score on the road. They get a goal with Mikael Uhre 2 minutes into this game. You get a chance with Quinn Sullivan a minute later. You have chances by Daniel Gaza, Mikael Uhre, Ty Baribo, but they can't find the back of the net after that first goal, and that winds up costing them. And so this is what Jim Curtin had to say in terms of the missed opportunities by the Union on the night.
Yeah, look, scoring goals hasn't been our problem. Surprisingly, their data team pieced it together, but over the last 3 years, we've scored the most goals in the league, and I don't think many teams would pick us as that. Our foundation's still our defense, so we don't like to concede 3. The one at the end, obviously, we're throwing numbers forward and a little desperate at the end. So I agree that the scoreline kind of flatters them for the amount of chances that we had. But this game, I don't want to oversimplify it, right? Go look at the Red Bull game. When we got our chances in that first half, we were ruthless, and that changes how the other team has to play. All right, they have to throw numbers forward. Then you can sit and counterattack. We got the first goal, which was great, and we joked with the staff. I had a good feeling that we were going to score first. From there, they're going to throw numbers at you, and we just kind of didn't do enough with the little opportunities to get the second goal. It's not for lack of effort. It's not for lack of good performances from guys. If you go through, everybody gave everything, but in those tight moments, we let ourselves down a little bit. Now we have to regroup quickly and try to chase 3 points on the road with New York City, and then come home against DC in a really important game again.
Yeah, everybody knows these next couple games, New York City, the game against DC United, Atlanta United, huge games for the Union, especially the 2 games at home against DC and Atlanta United. We can talk about those here in a bit when we talk about, did the Union still have a chance to get into the playoffs or not? But Jim Curtin's right. The players gave their all last night. Nobody's questioning the lack of effort. Yes, some players, Jack McGlynn, didn't have a great game. Sam Dinneround didn't have a great game. Andrew Rick didn't have a great game. I think Kai Wagner actually had a pretty poor game as well on the left side of the field, which doesn't happen often by Kai, one of the better defenders on this team, one of the better defenders in the league. But when you're going against the best player in the world, the best player that's ever played this game, and Lionel Messi, yeah, he's going to make you look silly, and that's exactly what he did a couple times against Kai Wagner last night. But like I said, 4 missed chances in the first half to double that lead. Sullivan in the 3rd minute. Then you have a bad pass back by Tomás Avilés in the 18th minute that leads to the chance for Uhre, gets saved by Calendar. Then Gazdag with the follow-up gets saved once again by Calendar. Gazdag then passes to Baribo, but by the time that the pass goes to Baribo, the shot gets blocked and Inter Miami are able to clear it out of danger. But, Avilés sold this game for Inter Miami. Has a bad clearance away in the 2nd minute that leads to Mikael Uhre's goal. Bad pass backwards, and the Union couldn't capitalize on that chance. It's horrible. Sam Dinneround had 2 huge chances in the second half. Biggest one in the 85th minute after a giveaway from Sergio Busquets, which this guy, I feel like, never makes mistakes, never does anything wrong. Goes about his business quietly. It's a bad giveaway by Busquets. Gazdag pounces on that, then passes to Sam Dinneround, who has a wide open net. Shot gets saved by Drake Calendar. Horrible. 21 shots for the Union in this game, 8 of those on target. Who would have thought that the Union would come in here and just outshoot Inter Miami without knowing how Miami plays? If you haven't watched Miami most of the season, looking at stats and data, that would be surprising to some fans, I feel like. But, Jim Curtin says, this is what makes the great teams the great teams. They punish you even though that they make mistakes, they still find a way to win. And that's exactly what Inter Miami did on the night. But I think this game, yeah, Miami still would have scored goals. I'm not going to say Miami wasn't going to score goals on the night. But the game is a little bit different if the Union go up by 2 goals. If Quinn Sullivan scores a chance, if Mikael Uhre scores a chance, if Daniel Gazdag scores a chance. Yes, Miami was going to be pushing numbers forward, especially if this game went on with them losing longer on in the game. We saw it in Philadelphia when these 2 teams met. The Union had an early 1-0 lead. Mikael Uhre scores in the 3rd minute, I believe, in that game. Counterattack opportunity for the Union. Buries his chance. But the Union cannot let those wasted opportunities go to waste. And we saw Julian Gressel score right after the break. Miami tied the game 1-1. Then Miami go down by 2 players and hit the Union on the counterattack and win that game 2-1. No way that should have happened. And this game was completely different. In terms of Messi playing, he didn't play in the last game. But Inter Miami really tried to self-sabotage themselves last night, and the Union just weren't able to capitalize on more of those chances. They capitalized on one, but when you're a team that's sitting on top of the Supporters' Shield, one of the best teams that we've ever seen in MLS, you could make the argument the best ever just because of the players that are on the field. When you get gifted those opportunities, you got to put the ball in the back of the net, and that's something that we saw against New York Red Bulls. Jim Curtin talked about it. when Mikael Uhre had a chance, when Todd had a chance, one-on-one. Both of those shots go in the back of the net. Wasn't the case tonight. And, if I'm Jim Curtin, I'm a little bit frustrated that those chances don't go up, because more times than not, like I said, on the road, this team's putting the ball in the back of the net. Scoring hasn't been an issue. That's exactly what Jim Curtin said. We all know that defense has been an issue. And I thought the team played well defensively. You get rid of that goal by Luis Suarez at the end, it's 2-1. If it's Andre Blake in net over Andrew Rick, maybe it's 1-1. The Union did a good job for the most part keeping Lionel Messi quiet, which is crazy to say. Yes, he had 2 goals. Yes, he had an assist. But you would expect, I was expecting him once it came out that he was starting that, this guy's going to score a hat trick because that's what he normally does. And they looked a lot better than when they played Inter Miami in the Leagues Cup, when they got completely embarrassed at Subaru Park last season. And this Miami team is beatable. They are beatable. And so if the Union do get into the playoffs, which, great transition, Todd, do the Union still have an opportunity to get into the playoffs? Would you guys, the listeners, would you feel confident in the Union? Let's say the Union have to play Inter Miami in the best of 3, the first game. Would you guys feel confident that the Union could upset Inter Miami? You would have to win the game at Subaru Park. They were in the game. They were winning that game. Yes, Messi wasn't playing. You go down to Miami, and Miami, a lot of mistakes, but you do well to defend against Miami. And so, yes, not saying those mistakes would happen again if these two teams face each other, but I don't know. Would you guys feel confident if the Union had to go down to Miami and play them in the playoffs? I know, as things stand, the Union aren't in a playoff spot. And there's some people that are saying, I just don't know if there's enough games left for this team to get into the playoffs. And, let's slow down. Let's relax a little bit. The Union are in 11th place. They trail Atlanta United by 1 point, who's in 10th. DC United, they lead the Union by 3, but they also have played one more game. They're in 33 points in 9th place. Union still have to play DC United, still have to play Atlanta United. And let's go ahead and just talk about that. New York City, 40 points in 6th place. Union trail them by 10. It's a tough ask for the Union to get in 6th place, 5th place, where Orlando City's at. That's a lot of points that the Union have to make up. Yes, they still play both teams, but I'm not sure that the Union could finish in 6th or 5th. I think 7th is probably the best this team could do. DC United, 33 points in 9 games, 9th place. They lead the Union by 3. Union have a game in hand. And then Atlanta United and the Union go and play after DC. They're at 31 points in 10th place. Union trail them by 1. Then the Union go and play Orlando City, who are at 40 points in 5th place. Again, lead the Union by 10 points. Then Columbus Crew and Cincinnati. You're not catching either one of those teams. Columbus, 50 points in 3rd place. Union trail by 20 points. And there's also a game in hand for the Crew. And then Cincinnati, 52 points in 2nd place. The Union trail by 22 points. You're not catching either one of those teams, but yes, you can absolutely catch Atlanta United. You can absolutely catch DC United. You go ahead and look at the team that's in 7th place right now. You have Charlotte at 38 points. So the Union are 8 points behind Charlotte. You don't play Charlotte anymore this season. You would need Charlotte to drop some points, but watching how Charlotte's played the last couple games, it's definitely doable. They lost to Montreal, who's a not so great team, 2-1. If Charlotte continue to drop points, you can see Union potentially get up to 7th place. Toronto, they sit in 8th place at 36 points. The Union have a game in hand there. Don't play Toronto anymore this season, but Union could potentially catch Toronto in 8th place. So I'm looking at 7th place is probably the best that the Union can finish. Yes, you need a lot to still happen. Here we go. We have more comments that I didn't see pop up. This one from Pace Hunter says, still a chance for the Union to make it to the playoffs. Yeah, I'm sure that came in a while before I started talking about the Union's playoff chances. I do absolutely think the Union have a chance at playoffs. And then Valerie says, if our best are healthy, yes. And that's a key, right? Andre Blake's missed 51% of the games this season. We just finished talking about how valuable he is for the club. You need Andre Blake the remainder of the season. You don't feel as confident with Andrew Rick or Oliver Zemla in net. But Jim Curtin was asked about, you've been playing well pretty lately here the last couple games. You played well against New York Red Bulls. You played well against Nashville. You played well against New England. You were on a 3-game winning streak, and then you went into a 2-game winning streak. Then you went in the League's Cup. You played well in the League's Cup. Then you played New York Red Bulls, which took you to 3 straight wins in MLS. Now you go into Miami and you lose that one by a score of 3-1. But yeah, I mean, we talked about it. They played pretty well, but this is what Jim Curtin had to say about the Union not having too many games left. And is there still a chance for them to make the playoffs?
Yeah, our margin for error has been self-created, right? We made mistakes early in the year. Some of them were injuries, some of them were international call-ups, but things we knew were coming, and we paid for it. We've started to dig ourselves out of that hole for sure. We've had some good performances in recent weeks. 3 league wins in a row that were really spread out over a long stretch, but good performances in Leagues Cup as well. I agree with you. Tonight was a good performance, but it needs to be a great performance when you play against the quality of Miami. We have a tough schedule the rest of the way. It's in our hands, though. And I agree. If the team can regroup and perform like that, you add Andre and a healthy Danley to the group, we can certainly make a push. No easy task to go to New York City and win, but it's something we've done before, and it's not impossible. And then obviously the 2 home games, we have to be at our very best, and those have to be wins. So we've put ourselves in this hole, but I agree with you. We are playing much better, and we have created a lot of opportunities. And we're close tonight to taking points back to Philly, which isn't easy against this team.
Yeah, and look at that, Valerie. Jim Curtin agreeing with you. If we're healthy, if Andre Blake's healthy, if Danley is healthy, yeah, this team can push on to the playoffs. Yes, it's a very, very tough schedule. I just went over that. New York City, DC United, Atlanta, Orlando, Columbus, and then Cincinnati. You're not catching Columbus or Cincinnati. You need to win your last 3 remaining home games for this team to have any shot at all making the playoffs. And then you need to get at least 1 point against New York City or Orlando City. I would say you need a win in one of those 2 games. It's going to be a tough ask to go into Columbus Crew, where you play them in Leagues Cup. Didn't look great against them. Not the greatest game from Jack McGlynn, and didn't have a great game at all last night against Inter Miami. So this game Wednesday night against New York City is going to be very, very vital for this team to at least get a point. Orlando City, you're going to need a point, but I could see the case, the scenario where the Union have to get a win in one of those places, because if you don't, if you lose both of those games, man, now you're putting pressure on. You have to win in Columbus. You have to win in Columbus. This is a very, very tough schedule for the Union. Every single team left but Atlanta United are in the playoffs currently. And it's a tough schedule for the Union, but with the form that Todd has been on, 14 goals in 16 games, Mikael Uhre back-to-back goals, it is huge, which, by the way, I was looking at this for Mikael Uhre. He has 4 goals in his Union career that have come 5 minutes or earlier, and 3 of those have came this season. If you guys listened to the last episode that wasn't the preview episode, I said Mikael needs 5 goals in his last 7 games. If he does, that's going to be great for this team. He's got 1 of those. Now he needs 4 more, and I absolutely believe that Mikael can get 4 more goals at the end of the season. You need him to just continue to be in the form that he's in currently. You need Ty Baribo to continue to be in the form that he's been pretty much throughout the whole summertime. You need Daniel Gosling to have a good game like he had again last night. And you need Andre Blake back healthy. Without Andre Blake, this team does not get into the playoffs. And speaking of that game against New York City, we know that Jack Elliott will miss that game because of yellow card accumulation, which is a huge blow for the Union. We know Nathan Harriel's now going to start at center back against New York City, which sees Olivier Bizo come in against New York City as the right back. The Union, though, have been pretty good. Have actually been great playing away at New York City in the last 4 games. 3-0-1. They've only conceded 2 goals. And again, there's 2 goals that they've conceded in the last 4 games. You can see that number going a little bit higher if Andre Blake's not in goal. But I do think that the Union have a chance. They have a chance against New York City if Andre Blake's in goal. Like Jim Curtin said after the match, Danley John Jock will start against New York City, which is huge for this club. They need him. He's been great ever since he joined in August from FC Metz. Once you play him in his right position as an 8, which the Union aren't going to do this season, they're playing him temporarily as a 6, which is fine. But, man, every single time we've seen Danley come onto the field, he's been excellent for the club. But this is what Jim Curtin had to say last night about Jack Elliott's yellow card and what it meant for the club against New York City.
Obviously, Damien's not an option anymore. We know that Nathan can jump in and do the job for us. So that'll be, we'll get a couple days to train it, see how guys recover. And Bizo can jump in at outside back, and we can kind of go again. So, with Kai and him both on yellows, we knew it was coming. You definitely wanted to avoid it happening to both of them. You're hoping, obviously, for good behavior. But if at 2-1 there, if Jack doesn't make that foul, Messi maybe hits the back of the net, and then you're disappointed the other way. So made a tactical foul that hurts obviously our next game for sure. We're better when Jack's on the field, certainly, but the yellow card accumulation is something that happens to defenders mostly during the course of a season, and we'll miss him, which is a big miss for next game.
So Jim Curtin, look, I know publicly he has to defend his guys. Yes, the Union are probably a better team with Jack Elliott and Jacob Glesnes as the two center backs compared to Nate Harriel and Jacob Glesnes. It's not a shot at Nate. We all know that he's not a natural center back, but he is versatile enough where he can play as a center back and play as a left back. But, yeah, Jack Elliott hasn't had a great season this year, and I don't know, he's a player, and we can talk about this in a later episode. I look at a team like San Diego. We were talking about John McCarthy. Could he potentially wind up getting traded to San Diego? I could see a scenario where Jack Elliott potentially gets traded to San Diego. He has an option for 2025. If the Union don't pick up that option, then he would be a free agent. There's no way I don't see the Union picking up that option. Why would you want to lose a player for free? We've seen the Union leave these types of things way too late, too often in the past. So, yeah, I'll be curious to see what happens with Jack Elliott here in the future. But, yeah, he hasn't had a great season. I missed this comment by Pace Hunter. They say if Union can finish chances and be better at third half, certainly playoffs is possible. Finish the created opportunities. Exactly. And the opportunities were there last night for the Union. They had multiple chances because of poor giveaways by Inter Miami. And like we've seen throughout the season, on the road, the Union are pretty well at finishing their chances. It just didn't happen last night against Inter Miami. And then Valerie chimes in here and says, I still have faith in Olivier Bizo. It's a hot take. I'm glad somebody has faith in Bizo, but I can't imagine that many in this fan base have faith in Olivier Bizo. If Kyle's still listening, I'm sure he'll chime in with some type of comment. But he's looked decent in games this season. I think there was a spell where he was fine in 6 or 7 games, particularly during the League's Cup. But I don't know. There's been too many bad moments with Olivier Bizo, and if you have to rely on him to start consistently as your right back, yeah, trouble's going to happen. One thing that is worth noting, Kai Wagner, he is 1 yellow card away from being suspended. Needs 3 more games without a yellow card to get good behavior. Jim Curtin also mentioned that Kai Wagner is healthy enough. He's good to go against New York City. I know there was a challenge later on in the game where we saw, okay, Kai Wagner looks to be in some sort of pain, but Jim Curtin said Kai's able to go. He's fine. Pace Hunter chimes in, says 20 shots, 8 on goal, need to put in at least 50% of those in the back of the net. Yeah, I mean, definitely when Miami's making as many mistakes as they did this game, you got to finish off some of those chances because they were gifted way too many opportunities in this game, and you only take advantage of one of those. I mean, it's rare when you see a team make 3 really huge errors, and a team like Inter Miami where they have experience with these players that have played at top levels, played at Barcelona for all those years, been stars for the national teams. You don't see Sergio Busquets make the type of mistake that he did last night. Daniel Gazza gets on the ball and then squares it to Sam Adinron. You got to put that in the back of the net. And, it's just the story of missed chances. Union defended well, just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens on Wednesday night against New York City. Kai Wagner, good thing is, didn't get a yellow card like Jack Elliott, because if Jack Elliott and Kai Wagner would have got a yellow card, I mean, what do you do? I mean, Macania is definitely starting because you're going to put Nathan Harriel, I would imagine, as your left back. We've seen him play a left back in the past. Actually, he's played more left back than he has center back for the Union, but he looks better, in my opinion, at center back than he does left back. Reminds you a little bit of Ray Gaddis playing left back at the times in the past for the Union, where we all know Ray was much better at the right than the left, but because the Union had nobody to play left back, they threw Ray Gaddis out there. Sorry, Fabinho. But yeah, that's a situation that I know that this coaching staff would not have wanted to deal with. Yeah, you could potentially throw Leon Flock as a left back, and I think a lot of questions after the game would have been asked, what are you going to do against New York City if Kai Wagner and Jack Elliott both would have been suspended? Fortunately for the club, like Jim Curtin said, only one of those players are going to miss against New York City. But let's go ahead and quickly end with 3 stars. Then we'll review my keys to the game, and then we'll go blend in the week quickly. And so 3 stars, we'll keep this quick. Number 3, Quinn Sullivan, 2 chances created, 2 out of 3 dribbles complete, 2 out of 3 accurate crosses, 2 interceptions, 6 ball recoveries. You know, there was moments last night where Quinn was good on the dribble. He was good with crosses, particularly to Sam Adeniran in the second half. In the 64th, 65th minute, Sam Adeniran's going up against Noah Allen, which is a complete mismatch. Noah Allen subbed on in the first half for Martinez, who had to exit due to injury. Noah Allen's a left back playing center back. Huge height advantage Sam Adeniran had, and he couldn't put that header on target. But there was also moments last night where Quinn Sullivan gave the ball away too poorly. You know, should have passed instead of shooting. And that's been the story of Quinn Sullivan the last couple months. And he's a talented player. Nobody's denying that. But yeah, some of the decisions that he makes, he's got to get better. And as Jim Curtin reminded us last night, he's still a young player and he's still going to make those mistakes, but he'll learn from those mistakes. You know, you would rather see those players make those mistakes and then correct them in the future than, you know, not make those or make those mistakes and never correct them. So yeah, it was an up and down game from Quinn Sullivan, but I do think that he was one of the Union's best 3 players. Daniel Gazdag, number 2, 3 chances created, 1 interception, 7 ball recoveries. Daniel Gazdag was excellent. Had to pull out of the Hungarian national team during the international break because he picked up an injury, was it a hamstring injury? I can't remember what Jim Curtin said, against New York Red Bulls, which didn't allow Daniel Gazdag to go to Hungary. He stayed back with the Union and recovered and was healthy enough to start. And yeah, Jim Curtin said in his pregame that the sharpness isn't there like it was against New York Red Bulls, but he'll eventually get back to that level. And then number 1, Mikael Uhre, 1 goal, was very active, had 2 out of 3 shots on target. And, you know, we need Mikael Uhre to continue to start games hot, continue to get involved with his team, continue to make those runs into the back of the net because the Union need him. They need Ty Baribo. They need Daniel Gazdag. They need Andre Blake to carry this team. And if those guys can find form, particularly in these last 5 games of the season, I do think this team gets into the playoffs. The last 6 games in the season. And if those guys find form, this team, I have no doubt that they'll be in the playoffs. But let's go ahead and quickly remind you guys what my 3 keys to the game were. Number 3, and this probably should have been number 1, was stay compact. I talked about how Miami loves having tons of possession of the ball. They don't take a ton of shots, but the shots they do take wind up going on target. And there was times where the Union weren't compact. First goal, were not compact at all. Too wide, gave Messi way too much time and space, puts the ball in the back of the net. The second goal, the Union then go compact. They give Jordi Alba too much space out wide, which is fine because if Jack McGlynn goes and tracks the run by Messi, if Jack Elliott's not sitting too deep, then I think, you know, we're probably not talking about a second goal by Messi. Andrew Rick, yes, got a hand to that. Probably should have done better, but Union, there was times they were compact, times they weren't. I would say that's a fail. Number 2, I said defend set pieces. Yeah, set pieces weren't a factor in this game for Miami. The Union had a couple of set pieces where Jacob Glesnes had a shot on target from a header, wasn't able to put that on frame, but Miami didn't really trouble the Union on those set pieces. And then I said, hit on your counterattack opportunities. Miami had given up 6 counterattacks, including a counterattack when these 2 teams last played. And it goes back to the point we've been talking about all night. You can put in, just take advantage of your opportunities. Union had plenty of opportunities last night and couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. So I would say 2 out of 3 of those keys the Union did not succeed, and that's why we didn't see the Union come away with at least a point. But let's go ahead and end the show with Blunder of the Week. And just like we started, if you guys have nominations at all during the week for Blunder of the Week, my DMs are open on all social media. If you guys want to email, if you guys want to text, yes, please nominate your blunders of the week, because we would love to look at all blunders that are involved in the soccer world. But during last night's game, and I know that I've given these guys blunder of the week before, I know I've talked about this in the past, but it has to go out to Apple TV, because they constantly miss action. It's the chance we saw with San Marino in the 85th minute, where it's a giveaway by Busquets. We heard the commentators talking, but they're showing a guy on the sideline. And so we didn't get to see that chance in real time. Fortunately, Apple then go back and show the replay, but it's been too many times this season, multiple times in the same games, multiple games this season, where they show plays that have nothing to do with what's currently going on. So Apple, once again, you are getting blunder of the week.
Yeah, not good.
So they're not the only ones. I know somebody chimed in on Twitter, and I forget who it was, my apologies, and said, they've seen the same thing happen in Serie A, I believe it was, with Paramount Plus. So, yes, to Apple's credit, they're not the only ones to miss action, but it's so infuriating when you miss action in real time. And, yes, it's no big deal if we're at the games in person, but when it's away games and not everybody travels to away games, you want to be seeing up-to-date action. And Apple, time and time again, continue to miss action in real time, so they get blunder of the week once again. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow @FreeKickPod, wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. Check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/FreeKickPod. Yes, we are live on YouTube. Yes, the Goals Breakdown video is live on YouTube as we speak. So if you guys haven't checked that out, go ahead and check that out. And if you guys don't want to listen to the podcast wherever you get your podcast, which The Free Kick, super easy to find, you can go ahead and check out the Substack, thefreekick.substack.com, where I post the Goals Breakdown videos of the podcast. I do some writing on there, so I leave everything in one place for you guys to check out. If you guys haven't checked that out, there's an opportunity where you guys don't have to go searching here and there. But again, a lot of you guys have chimed in tonight on YouTube, and I appreciate that. Valerie, Kyle, Jose, Jillian, Pace Hunter, you guys are what make the show the best. Valerie chimes in here about blunder of the week and says, yeah, not good, Apple. Yeah, not good at all. But like I was just saying, you guys are who make the show what it is. I love interacting with you guys. Every time I go on the Battered Herons podcast, their chat's amazing. And they're who make their show, just interacting with all of us anytime I'm on there and reading their comments and people in the comment section going back and forth. Fortunately, we don't have that here on this show, at least yet. Hopefully we never get that. But, having different opinions isn't a bad thing as long as, we're not personally attacking anybody. But, yeah, I appreciate all you guys watching live on YouTube. Again, if you guys haven't had the opportunity yet, we usually go live on YouTube the day after a game at 9 o'clock, 9:30. And so I'll go ahead and give you guys an episode on Thursday, and then after Thursday, I'll unfortunately miss the game, or the game on Wednesday, but I'll miss the game in person on Sunday against DC United. I'll be on vacation, but I do plan on doing a podcast for you guys. I don't know exactly when I'll record that podcast on vacation. I do plan on doing Goals Breakdown and then writing an article or two, and it just might not be as often as you guys are used to, or at the different times you guys are used to. And I definitely am not taking all my recording equipment that I have this time. I'll just take my little wireless mics that I use for player interviews, interviewing Jim Curtin, or you guys have seen me, or at least heard me use those mics on the Goals Breakdown, and I've also used them in a couple podcasts. I used them for the Chicago video, and so I'm not sure if we're going to go live yet because the Wi-Fi is a little bit spotty at the house that I stay at in vacation, so we'll see what happens. But you guys will definitely get a podcast on Thursday after the New York City game on Wednesday, and hopefully everything goes to plan on vacation where I can continue to give you guys the show. But if not, I'll keep you guys updated on social media, and for people who have my number, I'll text you and let you guys know if I'm going live or not. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.